Hello all you lovely cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be taking a look at Duelyst. Now Duelyst is a free-to-play collectible card tactics game developed by Counterplay Games. Duelyst centres around the idea of head-to-head matches between players that last upwards of 5 to 10 minutes and focusing around a general. Now each player has a general and that general will have stats. It will have an attack stat and a health stat, and once a general dies that player is the loser. There are several factions available for players to choose from, each with a couple of generals. You will automatically get the base general, and then you're able to unlock newer generals as you progress. Now each general is different, each faction is different, they all have unique play styles. Each general gets an ability that is unique to them and will reflect their ultimate play style. Now on the game's face, it does look wildly different than other collectible card games such as Hearthstone. However, in fact, it is entirely similar in nearly every respect. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Duelyst is essentially Hearthstone in a new package. It works the exact same. You have minions that have an attack and defense value. All the core mechanics of the collectible card game are the same. The free-to-play business model is the same, and the only real major difference is of course aesthetic and of course the addition of turn-based tile combat. So for those of you who have not played something like Hearthstone before, let me explain the core mechanics to you. You have a deck of cards. These deck of cards can contain minions, it can contain spells, it can contain traps and artifacts, which are essentially equipment that your general can equip, which will do a specific function like add damage or add health. From this deck, you then head into battle, and your battle starts with both players' generals on the field, as well as 3 mana points, which once you go over that tile and collect that mana point, you will add a mana to your mana bar. Now essentially you have a mana bar and a turn bar, so once your turn is over, you will gain a mana, and each card represents a mana cost. So for example, one minion might cost 2 mana, another minion might cost 7 mana. Once a match begins, you are able to summon minions, cast spells and equip generals with artifacts, and basically that happens, it's essentially your general doing that. You are essentially spawning minions from your general spawn point, and you will able to basically move around the board as you see fit. So essentially what you're looking at right now is essentially Hearthstone with a little bit of a chess element. And the great thing about Duelyst, I have to say, is that it executes all its core mechanics that have done previously in other card games to near perfection. I have to say the amount of combinations available is fantastic. All the minions are varied. They have a great set of characteristics. So some minions have special abilities and activated abilities such as Death Wish, which is essentially what happens when one minion dies on the board. A minion with Death Wish might gain a 1+1, and all that combined with the fact that you have turn-based tile-based combat, so you've got to think about positioning, you've got to think about tactical arrangement, you've got to think about things like where you are going to attack. And the great thing is also, unlike games like Hearthstone, you can actually attack diagonally, which is a nice thing. It means that it stops the games from becoming slow or stale in that regard. You're able to really switch up the tactics and use your minions and your cards to the best of your ability. Now those of you who've watched my videos before know that I am a big fan of Hearthstone. I'm a big player of Hearthstone. I play it in my private time. It's not something I cover on the channel because I enjoy it and it's kind of my stress eater. That's what I go to do to chill out. And I have to say that I was really impressed with Duelyst. I was really impressed with its fluidity, its pace. I love the fact that matches don't drag on forever. You always feel like you are in the game regardless of how well it's going. And I really like the fact that you can, at any time, one mechanic that I really enjoy is the fact that at any time on your hand of cards, you every turn can replace a card. So if you feel like, if you're, 5-6 turns into a match and your hand of cards is absolutely god-awful, then you can discard one card and essentially replace that card from your deck for a chance for it to be a better card. And I really enjoyed that mechanic. I thought that left the entire experience a lot open. Now, obviously, with any card game like this, you do have an RNG factor, and it does come down to a little bit of luck here and there in terms of what cards you draw and when you draw them. But ultimately, that's inherent into this type of game, this type of genre. So it's something that comes part and parcel. Very also similar to Hearthstone is the way that the game modes are set up. So you have, seasonal ladder matches where you can gain a rank, and then at the end of that particular season, which usually lasts a month, you will essentially gain a loot box that will give you card packs, etc., etc. The business model is the exact same, so you earn in-game currency by playing and winning and completing daily challenges, and on top of that you can also spend real cash to purchase credits, which will allow you to buy more packs. Something I liked about Duelyst that Hearthstone doesn't do is the fact that Duelyst has a codex which basically explains the game's lore, and there's essentially around something like 30,000 years of lore in the game, and you can really understand who the factions are, who the generals are, who the main characters are, all the events that take place, the world surrounding it. And I really like that fact, and I always thought that was something Hearthstone should have explored, that kind of story, that kind of lore, because at the end of the day, not everybody has played Warcraft back in the day, and there's a lot of Hearthstone players who no doubt won't have played Warcraft but want to know more about the Warcraft world, and I always thought that was something that they missed, and Duelyst haven't. And Duelyst Codex is really fun. It's an interesting read, especially for lore nerds like me. That was a nice little feature. It didn't, it's nothing that adds to the overall core mechanics of the game in any way. It's just a nice addition to the game for the overall experience. Graphically, the game is nice. Now, I'm not a particularly big fan of pixel art. It's not something I like. I'm not a big fan of sprites. I do like the sprites in Duelyst to a point. Some of them are pretty hard to tell what the hell they are, and that's inherently problematic with pixel art. I have to say the backgrounds, however, and the battlefields look stellar. I really like that hand-drawn art style that they put in place there. I'm not a big fan of the sprites, like I've said. It's just something that is there, and obviously they chose to go with that particular aesthetic. I have to say that I do like it more than, say, traditional static cards. That's something that I'm glad that these have animations and they do things rather than just having a static card that maybe moves a little or something. I have to say that is a big improvement, and it makes the whole card game experience a lot more fun. And I've always thought that Yu-Gi-Oh! Would have been a great game. Like, if you had this as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game particularly, that would have been a lot of fun too. That's the kind of thing that I would have expected from a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, is like, having an actual avatar for a card. And Duelyst have pulled that off really, really well. And the best thing I have to say overall about the overall experience of the game is the fact that it never really feels like you're playing a card game. And that's quite fun. It feels more like you're playing a turn-based tactics game, which you are in a sense, but you're also playing a collectible card game. And that kind of combination works so well just for the overall feel of the game. It works so well. It never ever feels like, oh god, I'm playing another card match and card after card after card. You never ever get that feeling like you do in some Hearthstone matches where you've played ladder for maybe half an hour and you're like, oh god, another card game. You never ever get that kind of lethargic feel, and that is certainly a credit unto itself. Overall, I have to say I'm very, very impressed with Duelyst. I think it is a great free-to-play card game. I think players of card games, players of turn-based tactics games will have an absolute joy of a time here. Of course, it is going to be a little bit grindy down the way in terms of collecting cards, especially if you don't want to spend any real-world money like I don't, and it's just going to be one of those things that's inherent to the free-to-play genre. It is a little bit of a, time sink in that regard, but you are able to craft and disenchant cards, so there is that option there also. So ultimately, I think it is a fantastic game. The developers have done really well. It deserves every success, and for me, the execution of the game is absolutely paramount. It is absolutely top notch, and it's certainly worth checking out. So that is my review of Duelyst. Thank you so much for watching and listening. As always, do like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.